So on this condensed version of Antron versus Z-lon, there's a lot going on this slide. Stick with me. It is important to understand the manufacturing process of textured yarns. And you go, why do we need textured yarns? Well, they make our sweaters and socks and stuff nice and fluffy. The first part of the process to making textured yarns is to get this mix of liquid polymer. And so there are pretty much the same between Antron and Z-lon. These things are, super secret, but they're both basically nylons. They both have about the same stiffness and translucency. This liquid then gets pumped and pressurized, and it goes through this spinneret that has about 70 holes, and that's the same for Z-lon and Antron. On a certain length of yarn, there are about 70 fibers. So it's this dye that's one of the big differences for different yarns. And so this would be like that Play-Doh thing you had as a kid, and you put the Play-Doh in and you push it down and it comes out in little spaghetti. Well, it's the same thing going on here. With this dye, like I said, you get the same number of fibers, and this is where the diameter of the fibers get defined, and that's about 55 microns a piece. And they both have this trilobal cross-sectional shape, and we'll talk more about that later. So after this stuff is squirted through, it goes into what they call a stuffing box or a crinkle box. And this is where the fibers actually get set and crunched and gives their crinkly appearance. And then after that, they can dye it to whatever color you want. And so with the Antron and Z-lon, they both have about the same amount of kinks, both small and large. So there wasn't a lot of difference there. But anyway, after all this manufacturing process, we get our yarn, whether it's Z-lon or Antron. So based on that liquid polymer that they start out with, that's what gives the fibers their translucency. And that is that light can pass through, but not the actual image. And the biggest thing with the dye that we had talked about is this trilobal profile. And what the trilobal profile does is gives us that sparkle in the yarn, both on Z-lon and Antron. And it actually looks just like this, except it's 55 microns crossed. And I'll talk about diameter again. The fibers are both about 55 microns across. And micron is 1/millionth of a meter or 1/25,000th of an inch. Just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with is the hair on our heads, and mine especially, is 75 microns. Here's our nylon and Z-lon, and then half of that is a white blood cell. So these fibers are really small. So remember that dye we talked about where it's like our Play-Doh gets squirted through. Okay, both of the Antron and Z-lon get this trilobal profile. Now what I did is I took the Antron and I took the Z-lon. I put them in epoxy and I made thin slices. And this is like looking at the end of a human hair, except smaller. You can actually, and this is really cool, you can actually see that trilobal profile, and it's 55 microns across. The interesting thing about the Z-lon is there's a hole in the middle. Okay, and this is the biggest difference, and this is what is important. Now, it's about 1/4 the diameter of the actual fiber itself, but you can see it in this picture and this picture. And it was pretty tough actually looking into the end of a human hair, but or smaller. So that's pretty cool. And this was a big difference. And then you go, why is that such a big deal? Basically, what the hollow fiber does, it makes the yarn brighter, and for carpets, it helps hide the dirt. Now, the biggest thing it does is it diffuses light. So if we go down here, Antron, light is either just going to pass through the Antron or it's going to get reflected out. Okay, and the blue show that it just passes right on through. Now with the Z-lon, this is where it's pretty cool, and the big difference is the light comes down, and of course if it hits the side surfaces it gets reflected out, that's in the red. But in the blue it actually goes down in and hits the hollow center where there's really another surface, and it starts to disperse out. So the Z-lon diffuses light. You'll ask, why is that such a big deal? So why is diffused light important to us fly fishermen? Because many insect wings, like mayflies, their wings diffuse the light. And here's a nice pretty picture of a wing that you can see shows the translucency, but also with the texture and stuff and looking at it, it diffuses the light. So a brown Z-lon would imitate this wing really well. So that's the difference, is for your wings, using Z-lon better imitates the insect, and Antron just will show some translucency, but really doesn't disperse the light like an actual insect wing does. You can read through this slide yourself. There's a lot of talk about Antron being like silk. So that concludes this abridged version of Antron versus Z-lon, and the biggest difference is that hollow core on the Z-lon better imitates a light passing through it that is similar to insect wings.